would consider yourself to be artistic? Can I get a show of hands? All right. And how many would say you're more of the math and science business type? All right. Now let's think about this for a minute. There are a lot of different ways to be artistic. You could be artistic in the kitchen or at the grill. Any grill masters out there? All right, we've got a couple. You could be artistic with photography or video. Does anyone relate to that? Writing is an artist pursuit, and music. Anyone play a musical instrument? Great. How many of you feel like you were more artistic when you were younger, but maybe not so much today? Yeah. See, I believe that each one of you has an artist within you, and that this artist is the key to unlocking out-of-the-box innovation, flashes of brilliance, and moments of genius. I'm Lynna Redhawk, and I'm the author of the upcoming book, Vagare, Permission to Wander. I'm based in Santa Cruz, California, and I guide corporate teams and individuals through creative experiences designed to activate the inner artist and spark innovation. I first learned the word Vagare when I was studying Italian in Florence during my junior year of college. It's spelled V-A-G-A-R-E. And in Italian, it means to wander. And wander I did. I got lost quite a bit in Florence and other Italian cities at a time before cell phones with navigation apps, and I loved it. I would find myself standing in the courtyards of gorgeous cathedrals, wandering through museums and stepping into a hidden cafe for a cappuccino and a pastry. One of the things I realized is that wandering is an artist pursuit. Much like the blank page, the blank canvas, the raw ingredients, the first melodic notes, you're stepping into the unknown. And you don't know where you may end up or how things will turn out. You can't know. It's a creative process. Wandering is one of the many practices that Steve Jobs, former CEO of Apple Computer and Pixar Animation Studios, used to cultivate his creativity. In a 2005 Stanford commencement address, Jobs talks about his decision to drop out of college and how this gave him the opportunity to stop taking the required classes that didn't interest him and start taking classes that he was interested in. The example he gives is auditing a calligraphy class, which had absolutely no practical application at the time, other than to satisfy his curiosity. Fast forward 10 years later, when he and Woz are designing the first Macintosh computer. Jobs pulls from everything he learned in that calligraphy class about serif and sans serif typefaces and proportional font spacing, and they create the first personal computer with beautiful typography. Jobs said, and I quote, "Much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on." This is the heart of Vagare. When you give yourself permission to wander and let go of the outcome, you plant the seeds of creative innovation and allow them to take root. You don't know how or when, but they will bear fruit. When I first got divorced, I took a stable and secure administrative job. It seemed like the kind of job that a single parent, single earner should have. So I was sitting in a cubicle, staring at a computer all day and writing emails and drafting legal documents and scheduling meetings, and I was miserable. Every time I had a break, I would go out and walk in the nearby meadows, and I would be walking and praying for something to open up and release me from this prison of a job. The truth is, I had forgotten that at the core of who I am is a wild-hearted artist. And my inner artist was dying in this role. Eventually, I stumbled across a paradox. I saw cutting-edge corporations recruiting surfers and world travelers and indigenous anthropologists and snowboard pros for their diverse backgrounds, forward-thinking, and fresh perspectives. And then they take these creative, spirited individuals and they put them in a box, a cube, for 9 to 10 hours a day, ask them to stare at a screen and innovate. And then one day, creative problem solving slows to a halt. The team becomes restless and irritable. The exciting new hires look like they might be burning out because the cubicle is crushing their creativity. I started wondering what would happen if these organizations nourished their artist archetypes by allowing them to wander through creative processes and access those places from which boundless ideas and energy flow. What if they provided opportunities to fire up the creative centers of the brain? See, Vagare is counterintuitive to our modern working culture of go faster, push harder, work longer hours, be first to market, yield greater returns on investment. Stopping to smell the roses, take a walk, take a bike ride, practice meditation, try a pottery class, take a vacation, all sound insane and largely unproductive to someone in the early stages of a startup. But here's the catch. Entrepreneurs know that if they are not consistently innovating and evolving, they will become obsolete. And innovation is not born from the drive of the logic brain alone. Innovation needs spaciousness, fresh scenery, and access to the subconscious nonlinear thinking source of creativity. Now, Disney has been using creative process techniques for decades in order to inspire and activate the inner wisdom of its artists. In her book, The Power of the Other Hand, Dr. Lucia Capacchione describes a conversation she had with Herbie Ryman, the art director of Fantasia and Dumbo. At one point, Herbie had been frustrated with his team of young Disney animation artists fresh out of school because their work was stiff and lacking in character. So Herbie goes to Walt and says, "Walt, I can't animate these characters. They're so bland. Do I have your permission to work with the artist and try to loosen them up a bit?" Walt says, "Yeah, Herbie, do what you need to do." So Herbie takes the artists into a new employee workshop and asks them to draw with their non-dominant hands. Has anyone ever tried this? Yeah? I'm right-handed, so for me that's my left-handed. If you're a lefty, then it's your right hand. The artists whine and complain so loudly about how slow and awkward and unskilled it is that Herbie actually has to bring Walt in to tell them to follow in the instructions if they want to keep their jobs. Well, guess what? After the workshop, when these artists go back to their desks and start drawing with their dominant hands again, their work is alive and fresh and free, completely transformed. The reason is this. Writing or drawing with your non-dominant hand accesses the right hemisphere of the brain, where the spatial, emotional, intuitive, and creative centers are located. This is the nonverbal side of the brain, where images, feelings, and sensations are processed. Scientists have found that individuals with more connections spanning the left and right hemispheres of the brain tend to score higher on creative reasoning tests. Our capacity to innovate is directly related to our ability to recruit both the logical and intuitive sides of the brain. Now, Disney has continued to demonstrate its commitment to innovation and inspiration for its artists. When they began production of Finding Nemo, the computer animated film with the fish swimming around underwater, they actually required the animators to take scuba diving lessons. Hey, great, right? I'll be expensing my dive trip to the Great Barrier Reef. So they did go diving in Hawaii, in order to study the coral reef and really experience and internalize the underwater environment. That way, their animations would be as realistic and lifelike as possible. So you might be thinking, all right, sure, sounds like research and development. Yes, but this is also Vagare. Because curiosity and observation and the art of paying attention are cornerstones of wandering. Immersing those artists underwater engaged them in a full-body sensory experience that no doubt impacted their work. Finding Nemo won an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2003 and grossed $940 million at the box office. Seems to me like Vagare had a pretty significant return on investment. Can you look back through history and think of any other wanderers who've made significant impacts in the areas of art, science, and design? Tesla, yes, that's a good one. Anyone else? Who? Thank you, Da Vinci. I know that Leonardo da Vinci was a quintessential wanderer. And he really demonstrated the art of paying attention. In a Time magazine special edition on creativity, we get glimpses into his 500-year-old notebooks in which he took notes backwards, he wrote backwards, and he had intricate illustrations of facial expressions and muscles and measurements of different segments of the human body, light reflecting off of different surfaces, studies on the flow of water. What we really see is Da Vinci's obsession with understanding the world around him and his relentless curiosity. Walter Isaacson writes, Leonardo did not need to know how heart valves work in order to paint the Mona Lisa. He didn't need to know how fossils got to the top of mountains to produce Virgin of the Rocks. By allowing himself to be driven by pure curiosity, he got to explore more horizons and see more connections than anyone else of his era. Not everything he studied was eminently useful to his art or to his work, but he was wildly innovative for his time. Now, I have been wandering most of my life, and I still put Vagare to the test. A while back, I decided to sign up for a 4-day painting retreat because I was curious about this style of painting taught by a woman up in Portland, Oregon. Now, I was not a painter. I had messed around with my kids' liquid watercolors and washable paints, but I really didn't know much about painting. And so I get to my Airbnb in Portland, and I proceed to have a mini crisis. And it sounds a little like this. What am I doing in Portland? I'm going to be painting for how many days? Whose idea was this? Why am I not surfing a wave in Waikiki right now? Do you relate to that crisis of why am I here and not on a tropical island somewhere, right? Every day, maybe, have that crisis at least once. The reason I mention this is because you will have these moments in Vagare. When you're following your intuition, following the breadcrumbs of your curiosity, your logical brain will look up and be like, excuse me, what is the point of all this? How is this impacting overall productivity? This is when I encourage you to take a deep breath and dive back into your intuitive brain and trust the process, right? And try to have a little fun, right? If your wandering isn't enjoyable or at least very interesting to you, then it's not authentic Vagare, right? You've got to be having some fun. Now, I believe that Vagare works both for individuals seeking reinvention and organizations that desire to continue producing original, cutting-edge content and design. And it's really about following these basic principles. Give yourself permission to wander. Let go of the outcome. Be curious and pay attention. Integrate wandering into your daily life. Long story short, when I came back from that painting workshop, I had a great experience, by the way. So the Vagare worked. I had a great time. And I decided that I wanted to keep painting. I was very inspired. So I come home, and I rearrange my bedroom, and I hang plastic sheeting on one wall, pound a couple of nails in, and hang a canvas on it. Voila, instant art space. Now this is integration, right? I didn't come home thinking, oh, I have found my calling and I'm going to become a master painter, and no. In fact, my paintings look a little like Jackson Pollock meets kindergarten finger paint with a touch of Exorcist, right? The bottom line is that painting keeps my creative channels open. It's like Drano for my idea factory. So that when I go back and I sit down at my desk to write or design or problem solve, I have more creative power, more artistry available to me. I guarantee that if you are open to wandering, truly wandering, you will expand your capacity for innovation. Wander through a blank notebook. Write or draw with your non-dominant hand. Walk through a park you've never been to before. Take a drive, destination unknown. Perhaps you wander into a movie theater and see a different type of film, or go to a play, or the opera, or the symphony. Whatever it is, I encourage you to take a Vagare. Thank you.